It's 5 minutes after 2 o'clock. Welcome to the third and final hour of the show. You find us right here on the Power Zone, burning the midnight oil one last time for the week as we wrap up the week together here on the show. And you find us in the last hour just talking all things marriage. Right? We're going to be taking marriage. We're looking at the view of marriage. We're putting that under the spotlight, and we're putting that under the spotlight in the context of young people and where we find ourselves now. Jabu Zwane coming through to help us look at the concept of marriage as we go into this institution. It's believed that many millennials and young people are now hesitant all of a sudden, to marry due to the threat of divorce, amongst other things. And we'll talk about this as well as one of those issues that hold people back. But also, we hear that getting married is often perceived as a risk. So the millennials are treating it, approaching it with so much caution here because there are greater implications to being two instead of one. And we look at this hesitation. Where is it coming from? And try to also understand divorce. How does it come about? And what it does then to this institution called married. So it is a safe space. Like I always say, would like to hear your thoughts this morning. If you're one person that has gone through marriage, that is divorced, that is remarried as well, that is divorced again, or anyway is staying away from it. There are those that would say that I would want a partner. I wouldn't want someone that is a husband or a wife, but a partner. We're not married, we're staying together, and that is how then it rolls, right? And we hear that this young crop, this generation is approaching it all so differently. So Jabuzwane is a mindset development practitioner who's coming through to help us really make sense of all of these developments and where we find ourselves now as we try to help each other. It is a safe space. So come through and share your stories as well. You find us active and live on 0861 987 000, and thereby X we go by at Power FM 987 at Katlego Legodi _ railing behind the hashtag Power Zone. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Katlego, man. It's been a while. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a young minute. I'm okay, man. Are you well?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, good
Yeah,
to talk to you.
I was looking at the window there, the door. I'm like, this guy's gonna walk in any moment from now. But I'm like,
Yeah, it's so very cold,
it's
brother.
cold, very cold. I totally understand, man. But really appreciate you coming through and joining us this morning.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about it, Jabu. Yeah, the institution of marriage. I mean, as we were growing up, we know very well that we're told that marriage is something that is sacred. You'd see families being united, and it's just, then it goes even beyond the pair, just you and I, or you. It's just something else that you'd see a lot of people moving into to say we unite. But we are told now that there's a different approach that young people are taking now as they view this marriage. It looks like the perception of marriage, how they perceive it, has somehow changed here. And there are all of these issues that they're citing that could lead them to wanting to hold off. Just relax a bit, and in any way we see them being hesitant around just tying the knot. Let's talk about what your observations have been and just break down this institution called marriage.
No, absolutely, man. There's a lot of anxiety. In fact, there's a lot of outright fear about marriage these days. People fear, number one, especially if you're talking about the younger generation, they fear losing their freedom. Because for most people, they see marriage as the end of doing the things your way without having to consider someone else. And this can feel like a loss of some kind of independence. And number two, people fear losing or choosing the wrong person. So if you're marrying the wrong person, then basically that's a waste of your time, your resources, and probably a waste of your heart as well. The third thing is those unrealistic expectations, especially with a lot of promotion of self these days. A lot of people are putting themselves first, and the more you put yourself first, the more actually you are not ready for marriage, or people can lose the balance of how do I attend to myself and also attend to my partner as well? So where the lines where the self gets sacrificed over the other or for the institution itself. And so the battle is there. I think one more thing would be that there is also a fear of vulnerability and emotional risk. In other words, a fear of rejection, a fear that you love a person who would not love you back, and that you give them everything that you have, and then they give you nothing and take everything away from you. So I mean, there are many, many reasons, but those are some of the reasons that come top of mind right now.
Yeah, but also when you look at it, these new developments within this institution, or they've always been there, the fear of the unknown, because of you then stepping into this position. Or are they, or how do we find them becoming more pronounced now, more than ever? Looking at the fact that marriage has always been there, and we've seen marriage play itself out, and divorce was somewhat of a foreign concept back then, but we see it now at least becoming somewhat of a regular as we see people moving into this space. Is it a matter of people now being aware of some of these things and deciding that they are then asserting their independence, their authority in approaching this particular institution? Are these fears of the unknown, somewhat new?
I mean, no, they're not new. I think let's be very, very honest. A lot of the fears that people have, they are legitimate. I mean, they're informed by history. If we look at the institution of marriage, it has been for the longest time, the same place where many people, especially women, were oppressed, where they would a lot of their rights would be taken away. But at the very same time as well, in terms of men as well, I mean, if we're looking at it from the point of a lot of men having to lose a lot of their assets that they worked hard for, and on the other hand, women also feeling like if I stayed at home and I've been part of the institution as well, I do deserve that. We worked hard together, so it's always been those things. Those things have been there, but what I want to say is this. I think for me, my observation is the following, especially when I do a lot of counseling, marriage counseling. You observe online as well. There's a lot of promotion of self these days. And so the more you promote self, certain things start to have a different meaning rather. Like sacrifice, for example, can seem like a contra. It's not a wise thing for you to be sacrificial. If you understand love, especially from, let's say, a religious perspective, that love is self-sacrificial. It happens to be unconditional, and you give it for your own benefit, so for the benefit of your object, which is your spouse. Those types of ways of thinking then, contradict the preservation of self and the preference of self, and that's part of it. That's part of the big thing, I think.
And where do we then place the element of becoming an evolving individual? Can that be also something else that would tend to, push people into that space of saying, I would rather, pull back a bit, hold off a bit, and they're hesitant because you just never know whether 2 years from now you would still be in the same position with this person. Do you feel and get a sense that as you took in that there's now individualistic approach to this particular issue and the promotion of self, most of it would be guided again or informed by the fact that people, we are not constant, the changes and the likes. And now a lot of people are aware of the fact that maybe 3 years from now wouldn't be in the same position. We wouldn't be in the same position. And, these feelings would not be stagnant. I may find myself with someone else.
I mean, let's think about, first of all, what marriage used to give us. It's called an institution for a reason. And an institution has got certain laws, it's got principles as far as what does commitment look like, what does self-governance look like, especially as far as your independence, and your freedom, the freedoms that you have on your own when you're living by yourself. And of course, whatever you're building together in that marriage, whether it be that you're building a family to raise children who are healthy, who eventually themselves become healthy, or whether you are coming together to do that as well, but also serve the community and to be what they call, a power couple. And a power couple is more the couple that comes together and become better together. A two-chord string is better than one. Yes, the three-chord even stronger than two. What that basically means is that then that accountability. Because remember, as far as marriage is concerned, the people throughout history, we believed, especially those who have a religious connotation to it, like myself, that God is part of it. And so there's a higher accountability. It's more of a sacred institution that submits itself to the divine in that sense. And so it's you promote, you exalt it above your own personal needs. And that sort of guaranteed you, in a sense, that there will be a lifelong commitment. There will be the person would submit themselves to more, they be more patient, more persevering, more long-suffering. But unfortunately, as I said before, because of all the suffering has happened the way that it has, as far as abuse, as far as potential loss, and all of that, people are a bit more. We have become quite skeptical about it, and so in our question of evolution, you can see it happen when people are starting to call it something else, lifelong partnership and all of that. But we know and we see that what comes with that is that there are so many things being renegotiated, open marriages, and not the same strings and measures as you see in a normal traditional marriage. But the question is that are people more happy? I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say as well that marriage has kind of changed a bit. It has become somewhat open, compared to how it was just in any way a little bit sacred between the two and the likes. Now you see a lot of people approaching it differently. I guess one would say it's in a way of managing it or dealing with those unknowns as they tend to play themselves out. And then you decide and you opt to say that do you fight or do you flight in terms of all of these situations? You manage it in a way that at the end of the day, then maybe there won't be a loser because, there are dire implications to you then separating. But I'd like to remind our listeners at home that we have a guest here, Jabu Zwane, who's joining us as a mindset development practitioner. We're talking about marriage, right? The concept of marriage and youth viewing marriage as a scary concept as we see all of these developments playing themselves now and the approach to marriage being different now compared to how it was in the past. So you at home, you're welcome to form part of this conversation as well. Let's do it together. 0861987000 and thereby X, we are on at Katlego Legodi _ at Power FM 987. Yeah, let's talk. I want to talk about divorce, Jabu, because it does then play somewhat of a big role in some people being discouraged to go into marriage, and someone was saying and that it has become somewhat fashionable now in terms of divorce. You 1 in 3, you get someone that would say, no, I've been there, I will, those kind of things, and it does become somewhat normalized that there would be divorce, and we see the divorce rate as well. When you look at the numbers going up, people just taking each other to court, and it does then, it doesn't end well where divorce is concerned. But let's talk about divorce maybe being a contributing factor to how people tend to view marriage in this day and age.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, divorce has demystified this perception of a perfect marriage. I mean, you find yourself with people that have been together for 20, 30 years and deciding to get married. In fact, I saw the other day a 70-year-old deciding to divorce after 40-something years of marriage. Yeah. And and the reason for that was that, it's time to choose me. This thing has taken something from me. So the loss of identity, I think, is a big part of why people end up divorcing. And of course, I mean, some wrong expectations in terms of what people think marriage is. For example, people think that marriage is some reward of of loyalty rather than an evolution of an already existing love that wants to grow. So the old perception marriage once was has been seen as being unbreakable is being completely broken.
Mm.
It's that social and religious duty, even if you are deeply unhappy and abusive and having to withstand a marriage, like people don't want to do that anymore. Now divorce has exposed the reality that many marriages were held together by pressure, not love, and were not even healthy. The impact of that is that it has shifted the perception from stay married at all costs to marriage must be meaningful and not just permanent. It can't just be the sign of a good marriage is how long we have been together, but it's like how have we been together the longer we have been together. So it makes us realize that that we cannot continue to maintain facades for the sake of public fear of public perception.
Mm.
You know,
How do we then view it as something that does not just involve you, because at the end of the day, like I said, when people get into a marriage, it becomes what, a family thing. And do you get a sense that maybe somewhat in the past people were holding on because of the fact that indeed then the family would be the one that is keeping them together? At times you'd even hear people saying, let's call the elders in so they can intervene here where there are challenges, and you see a lot of them then frowning upon you coming back home from a marriage, and even when they more or less guide you during marriage day, they tell you to hold on and all of these things and respect your partner and do all of these things. But we see now the divorce being something that is playing itself out in a rapid kind of manner. Is it a point, or is it at a point whereby now people are like, no, actually it was not about everybody else, it was just about me and this partner? And what do we make then of everybody else that is an external party that tend to influence or inform this too, those that are in this marriage?
I mean, I think it's oversimplification when we think that it's just about the two of us, because it isn't just about the two of us. There's a reason why we celebrate in marriage with family, you know, and part of that is that it's realizing that we are accountable to the society that we're part of, because marriage is part of how we build a society, especially in the form of children. Now, let me put it another way as well. I think the big part of what gets us here is because we're not fully prepared. Many people see marriages from the outside. They don't really understand what it is inside. So I believe very strongly in informing and in educating yourself in terms of what kind of marriage do you want? What is it that a marriage is going to give you? And do you have people who are examples that you can be able to learn from, that you can go to when things do get tough? Because it is not easy to bring two people together with independent minds, with desires, with goals, values, principles, beliefs, and all of those things that they've built for many, many years apart from this particular person. And to bring that together and to try and negotiate that, to find common grounds and to build bridges that can help you connect, that is a very difficult process. And so getting help, and I believe very strongly in premarital counseling, and you discuss a lot of things about these things. How are we going to raise our kids? How are we going to treat each other's families? Should we have close friends? What do we have as a perception of, having friends of the opposite sex? How are you going to handle living arrangements? All of those things, they've got to be negotiated. And then we've got to be able to find where do we differ. And if we do differ, then how do we find each other? And part of finding each other can be in a facilitated process, whether it's a facilitation of the family members, the elders, or people that have been experienced in that space. I think that is crucial, because it's complex, especially now in a very diverse environment where it's not just we come from different backgrounds, we come from different cultures, we come from different nationalities, different races, different religions. All of those factors make things extremely difficult, along with all the other fast changing, parts of society that we're going through as far as politics and gender and so many other factors that I can mention, man. And so we do require a little bit of intervention. I think it's unwise to just simply reduce everything to just, it's just about the two of us. People have gone through this before, and then there's wisdom. There's wisdom in experience, and there's wisdom in seeking counsel outside of, counseling your own soul.
Yeah, it's something else, and that counseling then becomes very, very important. But when you look at it, Jabu, what becomes the future of this nuptials? Is it something that then becomes somewhat of a tricky terrain, or it does then become a different stroke for different folk? And in terms of also the counseling, do you see it really working to salvage and save these marriages, or most of the time you find that usually when it gets there, it's at a point of these people maybe needing advice as to how to manage this marriage, or separate, or go out of this marriage. How do we see that playing itself out, and do we then see a future going into this marriage and this concept and what it used to be back then?
There's undoubtedly, a future. I think, again, as I've said, the person you have to know what you want marriage to do for you. Why is it that you're deciding to get married? I always say this all the time. Before you get married, you must ask yourself this question: if this person never ever changes, and they are the way that they are, do I feel loved? Do I feel cared for? Do I feel protected? Do my emotional needs are they attended to? Is there a vision that I'm willing to build with this person that we can submit to together? Like, if nothing else ever changes at this particular point, am I okay with this? Because that is the minimum. That is the minimum that the marriage is going to give you. So if your answer is no to many of those questions, then you are not ready. You don't reward marriage because of the person. You don't use loyalty. Like, you've been together for 5, 6, 7 years, so we have to reward ourselves within marriage. Because the likelihood is that the permanence and the perception of marriage more than likely would mean to that person that you are acceptable and you don't have to change now that we are married. So the change that has to happen, I think, is, again, it's just continue to engage with each other, and then look at those expectations that you've got. What do you expect marriage to give you? And then emotional literacy, I believe, emotional intelligence. Like, many people lack the tools and emotional regulation for conflict resolution and deep communication. There's a research that was done by a gentleman called Dr. John Gottman, Gottman Institute. They do research on marriages, and they speak about the 4 apocalypses of marriage. And basically what they're putting down is that marriages fail at conflict resolution. It's not conflict that's a problem, but it's conflict resolution. Somebody who's very defensive. Instead of being open to growth, they're defensive. Instead of being open to being corrected, they are self-justifying. And then there's contempt. And contempt is that sort of resentment that you're building over time about the negative things that a person has been doing towards you. And then you have what they call stonewalling, and that is whenever you've got a problem, instead of communicating deeply and then learning the language to say what you're feeling, you are expecting the other person to figure out what you're going through, and then you shut down, and then you do silent treatment for 2-3 weeks, and by the time that you get out of that ice coldness in 2-3 weeks, the other person has been so badly damaged by that emotional coldness that over time it becomes very difficult to overcome those types of wounds. And forget the other one now. But I mean, the crucial thing is that there's a willingness. What is it? What is it that you are willing to do, and what is it that you are not willing to do? And constantly negotiating those and seeing if those align with the institution itself. And if it is not, then perhaps what you're not looking for is marriage. Maybe it's something else that you want to negotiate, however way you want to negotiate, but let's not call it marriage. Maybe call it something else. I don't know what.
Yeah, that's something else. And does it matter whether it is same-sex marriage? Because I think one would look at it as to the evolution then of the laws of the land and how then they tend to impact this institution. I mean, now we do have people that go for same-sex marriages. Does it matter whether it is same-sex or not? The approach then still becomes the same when you look at all of these issues that you've mentioned: conflict resolution, a person not being open to growth, self-justification, stonewalling, and the likes. Does it really matter whether it is same-sex? And would you say that some of these developments would be informed by the evolution then of the laws that would affect the concept of marriage?
Look, I mean, I would not be very skilled in terms of knowing much about the same-sex marriages, but from the point of relationships as a human experience, everybody wants to be loved, to be accepted for who they are. They want an opportunity to grow. They want an opportunity to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes without being made to feel like they are lesser as a person. And love is a negotiation, is an ongoing negotiation. Now, as far as the institution itself, and of course the law has certain provisions to protect those who choose each other that way. As far as I've said earlier on, the building of assets together, getting what is due to you. If you supported somebody for that many years, and your emotional support, your physical presence, whatever resources, intellectual resources you've provided and given to the marriage, they've contributed to building whatever assets and legacy and whatever else you've built. So then the person, there is something due to them. I suppose that's where then the law comes in, as far as ensuring that fairness, that it doesn't become an institution of exploitation and abuse, physically, emotionally, financially, psychologically, spiritually, and everything else like that. But ultimately, even if you look at it from the point of friendships and even sibling relationships, nobody wants to be used. Nobody wants to be undermined. Nobody wants to be betrayed or lied to and think that they have a relationship of mutual agreement, and then you commit yourself to certain things only to turn around and find that you've been completely betrayed and left out in the lurch. Yeah.
Yeah, this was so sobering, man. I mean, really, really pivotal conversations that we need to have here. And I love the examples that you gave at the end there, because then a lot of people would tend to place themselves as to how do we then deal with this conflict resolution as something that decides as to whether we stay together, we take it all the way, or it's a break. It doesn't work for us. Hence, then you see people approaching it with a caution, others even going for long-term partnerships instead of having someone that is a husband or a wife. Jabu, I want us to wrap it up here and leave it here for this morning. But before we let you go, how do we follow your work? How do we direct people your way?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm online. My website is jabuzwane.co.za, so you can get me there, or on the socials, Jabuzwane Talks on TikTok, YouTube, and also on Instagram. It's Jabuzwane Talks. Or if you just search Jabuzwane Mindset Specialist, then there are many different platforms where you can get me on there. Yes, thank you so much.
Awesome. Jabu, thank you very much, man. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll touch base soon.